Good evening, and welcome. Tonight, we delve into one of the most contentious technological and ethical issues of our time: the deployment of artificial intelligence for surveillance. This debate pits the promise of unprecedented security against the potential for an irreversible erosion of civil liberties. To navigate this complex terrain, we are joined by two distinguished experts. Mr. Marcus Thorne is a security strategist who has advised governments on advanced threat detection. And Dr. Lena Petrova is a renowned digital sociologist whose work examines the societal impact of technology. They will each present their opening arguments, followed by a moderated discussion and closing statements.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. Let me be unequivocally clear from the outset. The integration of AI into our surveillance infrastructure is not a matter of preference. It is an evolutionary necessity. We are confronted by threats of a complexity and scale previously unimaginable: sophisticated terrorist networks, transnational organized crime, and relentless cyber attacks that conventional methods are increasingly ill-equipped to handle. AI systems represent an indispensable force multiplier for our security agencies. They can process and analyze data on a scale that surpasses human capability by orders of magnitude, operating 24/7 without fatigue or distraction. This enables a critical paradigm shift. From reactive investigation, which often occurs after a tragedy, to proactive threat identification, allowing us to intervene before harm is done. Furthermore, these systems can offer a level of objectivity that is difficult for humans to consistently achieve. An algorithm does not have a bad day. It does not harbor personal grudges. It is designed to identify patterns and anomalies based on data, flagging potential threats that would be imperceptible to a human analyst sifting through mountains of information. Of course, there are legitimate questions regarding privacy. However, we must frame this not as an absolute loss, but as a carefully calibrated trade-off. We already accept similar compromises for our collective safety, such as the security screenings at airports. We trade a small measure of personal inconvenience and privacy for a significant enhancement in public security. The challenge, therefore, is not to prohibit this vital technology, but to implement it responsibly with robust oversight and stringent legal frameworks. To reject AI surveillance wholesale would be to voluntarily blind ourselves to emerging dangers, a dereliction of our fundamental duty to protect our society.
Mr. Thorne presents this as an unavoidable necessity, but I must fundamentally contest that premise. The widespread adoption of AI surveillance is a deliberate and perilous policy choice, one with profound and potentially irreversible consequences for the very fabric of a free and democratic society. What is being proposed is the construction of a digital panopticon, a state of constant, automated observation where citizens are perpetually aware they might be monitored. This awareness creates a powerful, chilling effect, discouraging legitimate dissent, stifling free expression, and eroding the freedom of association. People become hesitant to attend protests, to research sensitive topics online, or to communicate freely, for fear that their actions will be misinterpreted by an opaque algorithm and logged against them indefinitely. Moreover, the claim of algorithmic objectivity is a dangerous myth. These systems are not born from a vacuum. They are trained on historical data, and that data is saturated with decades of human bias. Consequently, AI surveillance systems have been repeatedly shown to misidentify and disproportionately target individuals from marginalized communities, particularly racial and ethnic minorities. Far from eliminating bias, they risk automating and amplifying it on an industrial scale, entrenching systemic discrimination under a veneer of technological neutrality. And we must consider the insidious nature of mission creep. A tool introduced today for the laudable goal of preventing terrorism will, with near certainty, be repurposed tomorrow for monitoring political opponents, enforcing minor social infractions, and ultimately, for exerting social control. We are not merely debating a security tool. We are debating the creation of an unforgiving, automated architecture of social sorting and control, a path from which it is exceedingly difficult to turn back.
Mr. Thorne, your argument hinges on the effectiveness and objectivity of these systems. However, Dr. Petrova raises the critical and well-documented issue of algorithmic bias. How can a system be considered ethical or truly effective if it systematically discriminates against certain populations? Furthermore, given that the decision-making processes of many advanced AI models are effectively a quote-unquote black box, what tangible mechanisms for transparency and accountability can be realistically implemented to allow a citizen to challenge an algorithmic judgment made against them?
That is a crucial question, Dr. Reed. The issue of bias is not a reason to abandon the technology, but a challenge to be engineered and regulated. Early iterations of any technology have flaws. The solution lies in a multi-pronged approach, mandating diverse and representative training data, continuous auditing of algorithmic performance by independent bodies, and implementing, quote, human-in-the-loop systems for critical decisions, ensuring AI serves as an advisor, not an arbiter. Regarding the black box problem, the field of explainable AI, or XAI, is rapidly advancing, developing methods to make these models more transparent. Accountability is achieved through clear legal frameworks that define liability, establish stringent criteria for data use, and create robust, independent oversight committees with the power to investigate and penalize misuse. The goal is a system that is not only powerful, but also fair and answerable to the public it serves.
Dr. Petrova, a common refrain from proponents like Mr. Thorne is that for the vast majority of law-abiding citizens, this pervasive surveillance poses no practical threat. The argument is, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. From this perspective, the abstract potential risk to the privacy of a few should not be allowed to outweigh the tangible, physical security of the many. How do you respond to this utilitarian calculus?
The nothing to hide argument is one of the most insidious fallacies in this debate. It fundamentally misunderstands the purpose of privacy. Privacy is not about hiding wrongdoing. It is about having the autonomy to control one's own information, to have a space for personal development, intellectual exploration, and intimacy without scrutiny. It is the bedrock of individual freedom. When we concede that space, we concede our ability to be fully human. Moreover, the definition of wrongdoing is dangerously fluid. What is considered acceptable today might be deemed subversive tomorrow by a different political regime. This infrastructure, once built, can be turned against anyone. It creates a society of suspects, where every citizen must live with the presumption of potential guilt, their every action subject to algorithmic judgment. This isn't a trade-off of privacy for security, it's a trade-off of liberty for the illusion of perfect safety, an illusion that history has repeatedly shown to be a mirage.
Dr. Petrova speaks of illusions, but the threats we face are very real. To dismiss the need for advanced tools as chasing a mirage is to ignore the stark reality of modern security risks. Responsible governance is about managing risk, not pretending it doesn't exist.
And responsible governance is also about protecting the fundamental rights upon which our societies are built. We manage risk, yes, but we do not do so by sacrificing our core principles. The greatest risk of all is creating a society that is so perfectly secure that it is no longer free. In closing, I urge you to look beyond the seductive promises of technological solutions to complex human problems. What is at stake here is the very character of our society. The path of pervasive AI surveillance leads not to security, but to the erosion of fundamental human rights, the right to privacy, to free expression, to dissent. It leads to the entrenchment of systemic discrimination, codified and accelerated by biased algorithms. It leads to the creation of a permanent architecture of control that, once established, will be nearly impossible to dismantle. The security offered is a fragile veneer, beneath which lies a society chilled into conformity and suspicion. We must not make this trade. We must choose to champion human dignity, autonomy, and liberty over the perilous allure of automated control. The future of our democracy depends on it.
I will conclude by reiterating my central point. In an era of escalating and asymmetric threats, AI-powered surveillance is a vital, non-negotiable tool for ensuring public safety. The debate should not be a binary choice between security and privacy, but a mature discussion about responsible innovation. The risks of bias and misuse that Dr. Petrova rightly identifies are not reasons for prohibition, but are critical engineering and policy challenges that we can and must overcome through rigorous testing, transparent oversight, and democratic control. We have a solemn obligation to protect our citizens from harm. To deliberately discard the most effective tools available to fulfill that obligation would be a profound and irresponsible failure of governance. Let us build a future that is not only smart but also safe.
I want to extend my sincere thanks to both Mr. Thorne and Dr. Petrova for their eloquent and impassioned arguments. They have starkly illuminated the core conflict before us, the state's imperative to ensure security versus the foundational principle of individual privacy. As we leave this debate, the question remains for all of us to consider. In this age of intelligent machines, what kind of society do we truly wish to build?